Welcome to our very special Halloween special. Oh yes, I thought I'd share something of the night with you today. You're not too frightened, are you? No, please, bear with me. Now listen, it's very nice as ever to have your company, and we're on a night shoot tonight. So I wanted to look into a story that's been knocking around my mind for some time, because when you think about horror, Halloween, things like that, you think of a couple of people, don't you? Before you say, no, not me, I'm talking, I can see you're nodding, aren't you? Now, basically, you think of Dracula, don't you? Frankenstein, things like that. I was looking through a recent tape of a gentleman that I'd met, and I've mentioned to you about him before, Sir Richard Attenborough, Dickie Attenborough, who recalled meeting the famous horror star of the 1930s, that's right, the brilliant Bela Lugosi. Now the story unfolds really because Sir Richard, or Richard Attenborough as he was then, was busy starring here at London's Garrick Theatre in the glittering West End, as ever. And this was way back in the early 50s. Now, the reason why the story is entwined is simply this. Bela Lugosi decided to come back over to London to try and kickstart his career again, right? And he hoped that his new revitalised version of Dracula, after a provincial tour, would end up back here at London's Garrick Theatre. Sadly for him though, it wasn't to be on a couple of counts. Basically because Sir Richard's play To Dorothy a Son became such a success that his producers decided not to move out of the theatre. And so consequently, for Bela Lugosi, his dream didn't really pan out in Britain the way that he hoped it would. But I'm sure you'll agree as we tell you this story on this spooky Halloween night that you will remember Bela Lugosi whether you're young or old. We've all seen one of his versions of Dracula, and he truly was a magnificent actor. But as we reveal, he couldn't always get his own way simply because he got typecast in a role. So without further ado, let's remember a wonderful actor who sadly was cut short in his prime on his very last visit to Britain, here on Halloween. It's no doubt, of course, that Bela Lugosi was in fact a huge star, but it was his time over here in England that really caught a lot of imagination. He was inspired by the arrival of people like Danny Kaye and Judy Garland, and he felt that he could make some extra money by coming over here and presenting, should we say, his most famous character, Count Dracula. So a rather young impresario decided that yes, they could indeed put this play, this spectacle together and tour it, eventually returning back here to London. And the reason why apparently he wanted to be at the Garrick Theatre was that he'd been there before and thought the acoustics were in fact absolutely impeccable. There was a problem, of course, when you are Bela Lugosi, and as ever, let me explain. Bela enjoyed, of course, playing his most famous role, but it was a bittersweet experience in many ways for him because while he enjoyed the material benefits of the success from the role, he was really never seldom offered any other part, and he apparently wanted to do comedic roles and even musicals. Now, after the Second World War, things got even tighter because simply people were going out of fashion, and Bela's hardcore horror wasn't really in the same league as people like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, stuff like that, you know. He wanted to move more into that genre, and of course he enjoyed it, but the public want to put you in a box. So after being ignored by major studios and struggling for work, he decided to head over to the United Kingdom, where he was assured by, as I say, a very young producer that indeed they could put together something that indeed would put him back on track and, more importantly, make some money, of which he truly needed. John Mayer was a Scottish-born cigar-chomping producer with a background mainly in musicals, but was a huge Bela Lugosi fan. And for a time he decided, well, yes, we think we could put something together. Now, as I say, originally Bela wanted to make sure he landed big here in London. But sadly for him, what truly happened was he ended up on a very long tour of the provinces. Now, the provinces absolutely delighted in seeing him because here was a real-life Hollywood star right before their eyes. And it was absolutely brilliant. You know, he sold out many of the theatres, but appeared in places like Manchester, Derby, Eastbourne and Hull. hardly the glittering light of the West End which he had hoped for. Sadly, his, how shall we say, his dream of coming back to London never materialised, but what did happen was his very final film. Now, his very final film I do have two connections with, because a particular gentleman was a comedian who was the understudy for Old Mother Riley, and he was there on the night that sadly Old Mother Riley, the character, died in the wings at the Tivoli Theatre in Hull. And he took the part on in place of him. The audience had no idea that Arthur Lucan had in fact passed away. But the idea, of course, for Old Mother Riley meets Dracula is a fun, comic sort of role. And really, Bela Lugosi enjoyed playing the part, even though it was a very low budget. And he was only on around about £3,000 for the entire film. He had been earning around about £1,000 a week, which was a lot of money to tour in the stage play Dracula. So obviously, when you think about it, in some ways, showbiz is a funny game. Bela Lugosi's name lives on, not just because of Count Dracula, but more importantly, it lives on all thanks to the comic genius of Arthur Lucan, who created the brilliant Old Mother Riley. And by default, meeting Dracula means that both their names simply go on forever in the world of celluloid. You've enjoyed our very short story all about a wonderful actor, the late and brilliant Bela Lugosi. And here we are right outside the stage door of which Bela came to in order to rehearse the play that he hoped to return to, as I say, on the very final stint of the tour. Bela was lucky though, because he turned up at a time when he was able to earn so much money, £1,000 a week no less, and see the wonderful sights of Great Britain just after the war, places like Hull, Eastbourne, Manchester and other delightful cities like that. I'm jesting, of course. But seriously, it's always nice to remember those that have gone before us. Forget, of course, that Bela Lugosi was indeed a brilliant actor, very well revered, not just by, of course, fellow actors, but by the public alike. And isn't it nice on this Halloween night to remember someone of such stature? And before you ask, I haven't got fangs. Neil Sean, Garrick Theatre, in the very heart of London.